Big news this week because there's a deal, supposedly a deal. What kind of deal? Well, a deal that you're not supposed to ask too many questions about because TikTok's back, baby. So, what does all this mean for everyone? Was it ever really gone? Spoiler alert, no. And do you think TikTok is safe? Well, we'll tell you, it's not. As we talk this week, it's going to be a lot of discussion, and we're going to go over this basically all the high level parts of this new TikTok deal, why you should still be concerned, and why nothing's really changed after this year of hand wringing where everyone, well, something did change. Some people got rich, and it's not us. So let's dig a bit deeper into it. Thank you for coming to Legitimate Cybersecurity this week. My name is Frank Downs. I'm here with Dustin Brewer. And this week, we're going to talk about all the new things that happened specifically with TikTok. We're usually not a show of the week kind of show, but the thing we like to do, well, topic of the week show, if you will. But the thing we wanted to talk about today is TikTok, because it's one of those things that's going to have a big impact that very few people are going to notice. And what we want to bring to your attention is how it's going to impact you. So for those of you who are not familiar, over the week, this last week, there was a new deal that was finalized wherein China supposedly doesn't own TikTok anymore. At least here in the United States, a new legal entity has been formed that is partly owned by Oracle, partly owned by ByteDance, the owner of TikTok, and then several other specific investors, many of which are also foreign, by the way, that now supposedly makes TikTok safe because it's not primarily owned by China. But what does that really mean? Well, we're going to take a bit closer look at the deal and dissect it for you, if you will, because there's a few traps in here, right? Specifically, if you're looking at the way TikTok was sold, there's a lot of considerations. Well, sold is actually kind of a lie, right? Because it's not sold, but it is a great talking point for the current president. President Trump is taking credit for all of this. But in reality, what's actually happened? If you actually read the 80-page filing, because there was an 80-page filing for this new joint venture, what you didn't see was a solution for the security problem. Because Dustin and I took a look at it, and when they call this divestiture, it's not really that, because what has happened has been I'm not going to call it a loophole because everything that's been done is legal, but ByteDance legally cannot own more than 20% of the new entity. So it's 19.9% that ByteDance has specific ownership over. Now, if you look at the rest of the build here, right, they have 19.9%. Oracle, the worst cloud provider, by the way, if you're any kind of cloud engineer, cloud user, any kind of cloud experience, it sucks. But it still exists, has 15%. Silver Lake, which is a private equity firm, that's got another 15%. But then there's another one, there's another organization, and this is one of the managing partners as well in this investment. It's called MGX. And this is an Abu Dhabi-based AI investment firm. So when you take 15% and add 19.9%, because again, they don't have a full 20, right? If you take that, you've got, what is that, 19.9 plus 20, 34.9% right there, ownership by foreign entities in this app, Dustin, that influences a lot of people here in the United States. And what's more, I want to talk about that. And I want to also know, what are your thoughts here on one, that level of ownership? And second, there is still no ownership by this organization of the actual algorithm. All this new joint venture does is ensure, quote unquote, ensure that US citizen data is kept in the United States. The core algorithm is still owned by ByteDance. And that is the part that I'm a bit more concerned about as well. But let's start by talking about, why do you think we have this new joint venture? Who's this really for? And why can Congress pass a whole law against this application and all we got was 16 hours of outage here in the United States?
I can't answer the question for why our laws are in even if passed by
I'm
the
sure a lot of
Congress.
people, well, I wonder why everyone out there thinks our laws are ineffective. Wait, was this law ineffective? Was the law passed by, I don't know, was the law passed by TikTok or not by TikTok, although maybe, who knows if you're going to get Illuminati about it. Was the law passed by US Congress, the US Congress, ineffective in actually getting a handle on TikTok and help working for the benefit of the US citizens?
Yeah. So two things. First of all, I'm not against foreign investment in the United States of America by any stretch of the imagination. We are a world economy. It is the way that the world is run now. We work with China, we work with India, we work with any other nation you can really mention, except for those that we have sanctions against, right? So there are a couple in the Middle East I can think of, and maybe Russia every once in a while, but then sometimes that goes away too, right? Just depends on kind of the weather, I guess, depending on whoever's running the ship.
Right. Yeah.
So, as a rule of thumb, I'm not really against, putting sanctions on on a foreign government. Sure, I get it. I get that it's a tool that's used to try to keep peace and to try to, to try to stop mass genocides and all kinds of horrific things that happen around the world. With that being said, it still is a global economy. What we see a lot with, deals with China is that everything this that I have right here, the thing that I'm talking on right now,
It's all from
the thing that
China.
I'm talking to you through, almost everything was made in China, right? Or at least Chinese adjacent to China. And so there's components of everything. So when you talk like I hear a lot of the like, well, we need to bring chip manufacturing back in the United States, and we need to bring this back in the United States, and I'm like, do we? Because those are those are really specific things, and I get it from a cybersecurity perspective because we have caught some companies putting in backdoors, doing shady security practices. Huawei comes to mind, and I know that that's going to cause probably a little bit of a kerfuffle on the chats here that we get from this episode. That because of these like backdoors and because of these capabilities for organizations to basically um, give access or gain access into a device that you purchased that you don't want to give them access to or never agreed to give them access to, that's an issue in the United States, right? It's about the closest that we come to a privacy law holistically within the United States of America because we don't have a privacy law. China does have a privacy law, but Frank, you and I have talked about that a few times, and there is one stipulation in that privacy law that says that the government it needs backdoor access to all servers and all data at all times. So if they need to run an investigation on somebody, they have that access, right? So thinking about the Apple, was it San Bernardino, the where they wouldn't unlock Apple wouldn't unlock his the terrorist
Yeah. Oh,
account?
wow. That's a good call. That's a callback. Hey, your memory's
Yeah.
better than
So
mine. The
so
San
that
Bernardino
that
shooter. Yeah.
right. And so like the FBI went to Apple and was like, "Can you unlock this phone for us?" And Apple's like, "Absolutely not. We're not going to bypass the security of our phones so that you can do an investigation." This was and look, think about it how you will, but this was China's, way to try to circumvent that so that no organization could say, "No, we're not going to help you with a terrorist investigation or another investigation." However, there aren't very many stipulations in there as far as, what kind of investigation. Does it have to be that crazy of an investigation? Or can it be something that's like, well, this guy maybe stole a candy bar, so we need to go and look at all of his Twitters. Whatever it is, whatever the idea is. The other part here is that China's also trying to say, like, well, we need to keep an eye on Google to make sure they're not collecting information about our people that we don't want them collecting about, right? So now flipping all that back over to here and going back into your TikTok question. Just to reiterate, number one, I'm not against the global economy. I'm not against foreign investment in American companies. That's fine. Here's where we cross the line, though, is when to the point of the Chinese privacy law, when you start collecting that amount of data about somebody and you start getting habits down and you start being able to be somewhat predictive of those habits, right? So we all think about these as like advertisements, right? Like, oh, they're gonna like, oh, what, they're gonna find out that I like looking at, I don't know, KitchenAid mixers, and now all of a sudden there's gonna be a bunch of, advertisements for different kitchen appliances that I have to look at. Like, who cares? Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's more than that though, because they're starting to be able to predict a lot more than just your buying behaviors. They're able to predict your voting behaviors, what candidate you support, what types of laws you support. Now we're breaking into this political spectrum. And That's where now it's like, okay, well, hold on. Let's talk about Cambridge Analytica, right? Because that happened with them, right? And we kind of caught them red-handed doing this analysis on everyday people via Facebook and trying to steer a country in a certain direction for a certain candidate. So, with all that being said, TikTok is owned by China. TikTok is a Chinese based company, right? The idea here was that, okay, well, we're going to circumvent that by making it 51% owned by a United States entity, right? I can't remember the exact percentages, but something along that. So we own the majority of it in the United States. All that data stays here as well. To say that we can truly control that and that we can truly monitor and that there's going to be oversight for it, I think is a very bold statement, to say the least. What do you think, Frank?
I'm going to tell you it doesn't matter who owns it. I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't matter who owns TikTok because nothing important actually happened in the entire creation of this joint venture. And I want to reframe the discussion because specifically, this is not Cambridge Analytica. I understand, and this is my opinion, right? It's worthy of discussion. And I like that you use Cambridge Analytica as an amazing example, right? Because Cambridge Analytica, smarmy, right? Sketchy. You taking all of our data and doing analysis on it to, try and understand how to best attack things and they use data to perform outcomes, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Sketchy stuff. Don't like it. This new joint venture for TikTok, one, it doesn't matter who owns it, right? Because the real threat was never really the data set. And I think it's beautiful here. This has been one big smokescreen about, our data, our data. We can't have our data stored in China. Oh no. Listen, whether you like it or not, everyone who watches or listens to the show, a lot of your data is hosted in the cloud in China and you can't stop it, right? Whether it's through a legitimate company that you've made an agreement with that you have no idea you did, or whether it was just stolen, because believe me, theft is real. Dustin and I see it all the time. People are stealing data. Your data is everywhere. Identity is meaningless, right? That's where we are right now. It's cheaper to buy a new identity these days than to go out and buy a McDonald's meal, right? That's just where we're at. And also, that's upsetting because the average identity it used to cost $8. It's even less now. Go to McDonald's and try to get a Big Mac meal for under $8. Kind of hard. Oh, Jesus. That's so scary. Anyway, back to why this doesn't matter, because everyone's thinking about this from the wrong perspective. The real threat from TikTok was never fully about data ownership. It was about how it would attack Americans' mentality. And the interesting thing here is this new joint venture keeps the data in the US and they say, don't worry, we're just going to train the model only using US information. So now it'll only be US information and it's US information training the model. Guess who still owns the model and decides what the model is? ByteDance, China. This was never about getting our information. They already have our information, but they can make slight tweaks to that model whenever they want. And they can make that model more aggressive. They can make that model to tune it to show us things we don't like, to make us hate our neighbors, to make us angry at each other, to make us maybe even support a political position that's not in our best interests.
I would
But
argue that what you and I just said was exactly the same.
then I wasn't listening and I apologize.
So, but you're right. But I see what you're saying. There's a distinction between who cares if they have my data versus who cares if they know my behaviors or how to manipulate my behaviors, right? But
Well, you
they
can know when I'm going to the bathroom. Just don't decide what comes out of me in the bathroom. All right?
I think it might be a little bit different than that, right? Or maybe not. I guess maybe
No,
not.
when it
You're
comes,
right.
I mean, well, here's the example,
I mean,
right?
they convinced you to eat that protein bar last night. That's what
Right,
happened.
exactly. They can train that algorithm to make me sicker, right? To make me think it's a good idea to, I don't know, eat horse meds, for example. So, where we have proven deaths from eating horse meds, believe it or not, look it up. And you know
Yes.
what?
Oh,
Even when you
sure we
find the
do.
data, those of you that want to still eat horse meds, do it. Eat them, have fun, right?
I can't say whether you should eat horse meds or not.
I'm
Anyway,
not telling you to eat them. I'm just saying if you're going to eat them. Fine. Don't listen to me. But if you're going to eat them, have fun.
all right. So here's and this is a good point though, Frank, because we have this come up with AI a lot, where it's like we've talked about this a few times before, where when AI first kind of started kind of catching a foothold a little bit in like 2018. We saw like Google coming out with models, we saw Amazon coming out with models.
We saw Facebook killing their models because they
Mm,
were upset that their two models talked to each other and made a new language.
That's right, yeah, and they couldn't understand what they were saying back and forth to each other. That was weird.
Yeah. I'm sure it's
But
fine. It's
yeah,
fine.
no, it's fine. The machines are fine.
Yeah.
T1000 is real. So then it comes down to like, okay, well, we implemented this new model and it turns out it's kind of racist, right? And it's like, oh, okay, well, why is the model racist? And it's like, well, I mean, we trained it with our data. It's like, okay,
Man, we're going to
so
have the most racist AIs.
So what's going on with our data, right? And it's like, well, the data is racist data because I've written about this before where it's like AI is almost like a magnifying glass onto society, right? Depending on the data set you train it with. Now, a lot of people out there are going to be like, yeah, 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 but you can train that out of it. You can change the algorithm. It's the programmer's fault because you can change the algorithm to train that kind of thing out of there. Sure, and that's something that, I think GPT or OpenAI and Facebook and some other folks who are creating these, and Claude are creating these new models that kind of remove the ick of society from its models, but it still is that data, so it still all comes from the data. So it's like, it's kinda 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. If you don't have the data to train the model's not gonna be very good, right? Not to say that a racist model is good. It's not. But you're not even gonna know to train that kind of, that kind of, issue out of it without that data. And so when you give the data to somebody, and you're right, Frank, anybody, not anybody, but any nation state could technically put enough funding towards a hack to go in and steal as much information as they need to steal in order to start building model. Or you can do it legally and make billions of dollars while doing it, which is the way I see this happening, right? So yes, you're right. It's about, they can still steer things. It's still about, the outcome is still changing the behavior of the people it's looking at. And so it's a whole new, oh gosh, the movie They, right? That's like what it always comes back to, is like where he puts the glasses on and you can see the alien messages, and
Yeah.
it's like the subliminal messages. It says obey, be thin, like all these kinds of subliminal messages that are in our society. It's a really cheesy 80s movie, but if you ever get the chance to go watch it, it does have one of the longest and most graphic fight scenes out of any movie that I've ever seen before in my life. Also, it brings up a good point, is that we do have these subliminal things happening. Before, we, as a society, all we had to worry about was that it had a catchy tune, it was played a lot on the radio or played a lot on TV. And now what we have to worry about is that those, think about that, but also now it's able to shift to try to catch your attention based upon your previous behaviors. That's all the data that it's getting from the model that it's creating. And the model is constantly shifting too, to try to get you to do something that you might not have otherwise done. So the data and the model, to me, are very similar things. And I think you and I are saying the same thing. I think maybe where I might have screwed up is I didn't demark between the data and the model.
First of all, you didn't screw up. You did a great job, doctor, and I appreciate all your input. And apologies from this pleb for trying to comprehend. Uh, I agree with what you said. There can be dangers in both the data and the model, and the combination of the data and the model. And I do think at the same time it is worth being concerned about, because what we're going to hear a lot about is the whataboutism, right? Because if there's one thing that's huge in this society today, it's whataboutism. It's what about this? What? Okay, and I love how people take. Oh my gosh, I don't how why do they do this? Why do they do this? Why do people do whataboutism? Like, I don't know why. You can come with a valid concern of something, and I'll use a dog, like dog ownership, for example, and be like, well, that dog bites people. You should keep an eye on it and take care of it. Well, what about all the other dogs that bite out there in the world?
Yeah.
Why aren't you concerned about that? It's like, I don't know. I'm concerned about those too. Well, what about, and then using this, what about, and then they switch into this. Well, I'm just asking questions. And this is how it applies here, right? The whataboutism is like, what about Facebook? It's like,
Yeah.
well, that is both a worthy discussion. We should talk about that. Well, what?
Hmm.
Okay. Well then, what about Instagram? And my favorite is when they don't know that Instagram and Facebook are owned by the same company, right? Holy Toledo! It's just like those. It's just like those people who tried to fight against. They're like, oh, well, if these companies don't support, I stand with Hobby Lobby. You remember that Hobby Lobby incident like 10 years ago, where everyone was like, I support Hobby Lobby and the CEO
Yes.
to treat people like garbage, right, and
Yes.
not give them the appropriate health insurance and all that. And so I'm not using Apple, because Apple has oh no because Apple has a gay CEO, so I'm only using Google. And it's like, well, first of all, you really need to figure out what Google's all about, right?
Yeah.
And they would do the same thing. I'm not using Google because Google supports the agenda. Well, I like your iPhone. It's a great product. Okay, so sorry, that just bothers me there when we're talking about awareness on the topics. But like when they use this whataboutism with Facebook, okay, I see that. Yeah, they're going to do the same thing and so forth. But there is arguably an more incentive for Facebook, for Meta, to not try to weaponize against US citizens It's specific. Meta gains nothing if our society degrades and falls apart, and all of a sudden, we have no government. I'm being extreme here, but have no government. Are all fighting on each other's necks, right? Because if we're not all here, we can't give it any money, right? Whereas you've got something like ByteDance with Chinese ownership, you've got this, geopolitical posturing. They gain a lot, and they're willing to make people who have no scruples to bring them along. And I think Oracle is a great example of missing a lot of scruples and not caring at all. Because if there's one thing I've learned about the Ellison family in the last year, is they don't care about you. So, and I'm not against big business. I think doing good business is good business, and I think you
Absolutely.
can be a big
Yep.
business and do good business.
Yes.
I do think, though, that some people get blinded by the idea of monetary value to the point where they don't understand or care about the damage they're doing, not just to themselves or to the long term. And I think maybe the boomer generation specifically could take a big lesson from that, but they won't. So
Right.
I've
And
interrupted you
here's
3 times. Sorry.
No, that's
Please.
okay. I tried to interrupt you like 3 times too. So I think that's a good point, and what we see that usually comes out of those types of situations in the United States, at least, is a really, really dirty word in politics called regulation. When an organization is doing shady business practices, possibly poisoning the environment, possibly poisoning the people around the factory that's creating something, possibly causing mental health or mental anguish towards the people, then that's when regulation kicks in. It's like, okay, well, you can't do that anymore. And now here's the regulation. Here's what you have to do. You have to put these safeguards in place. And people complain about it, and they're like, well, now you're muting business. Now you're not allowing a business to grow because you're putting these regulatory requirements on them, and a business can't survive or they can't make a profit. And I got to be honest with you, it's really hard to swallow that when you see how well the stock market is doing and you see how much the profit margins that these businesses are making. I mean, not even the margin, just the profit that these businesses are making year after year. And then saying, well, we can't put a regulation on that because it's going to make the business start failing. And that's not the case. At least not from what we've seen in the past. And the best predictor of future behavior, to go back to behavior, is, of course, past behavior, right? So knowing that organizations are going to continue to do this because we have people who are going to continue to get in that. And look, I'm not taking a moral high ground here.
You
I have
can if
never
you'd
been
like, by all means.
I've never been in a position of power of, where I was running an organization that may have been poisoning the planet or the people around me and then said, well, this is negligible, or we can just pay the fine on this or whatever. I'd like to think that I'd make the right decision in that moment in time. I don't know how hard that is for a CEO or for the C-suite to make. I'd like to think that I would make the right decision, but I don't know. Anyway, we're going like way over here, but I think it's still all interconnected. I think what we're talking about is still all the same stuff. Where does the responsibility of an organization or of a government to protect its people start and stop? And that's a really hard thing to say. We're in this new digital age. Did you ever watch, like, remember Outer Limits?
I mean,
Maybe it was
it's
an
not too
episode.
hard to say if you've got a constitution with amendments that you actually respect. It's almost like there's a set of rules, but
Yeah,
ah,
fair enough.
who'd have known?
There was an episode of Outer Limits where, or maybe it was the Twilight Zone, where a computer virus was able to jump from a computer screen into a person. And like we're almost at
Like
that
COVID.
level. Now we're spreading all kinds of crazy stuff.
No, no, what? Oh, no, no, no. Like the woke mind virus, because I say that's how you get the woke mind virus.
Was
You
that
jump
right?
into
We
yeah,
stared at the screen for too
internet,
long.
too much internet.
Yep, that's what
Sorry,
it
but
is.
please continue about the outer limits.
But no, the point being is that we actually are almost to that point in society where you can cause mental health disorders from what's on the
Oh yeah,
internet or what you're watching or what you're like. There almost is like a transfer of ideas or of something to make a person not just mentally but also physically ill, because it's kind of all six and one half dozen the other. When your mind is sick, your body may not be in the peak physical health either. So it just really interesting stuff kind of happening. We're in this When COVID did hit, we kind of all had this virtual playground to go to and this virtual world to go to. We could work from it. We
and
could
it
meet friends
sucked.
and we could still meet up with friends for drinks if we wanted to. And yeah, it did suck. It was not the same as going to a bar and meeting up with your friends. It was not the same as working in an office with the people who you like working in an office with, or maybe you don't like working in an office with them. I don't know. But and I'm not knocking working from home. Of course, why would I? But what I am saying is that we had this virtual playground to go to. We had this virtual world to go to. We all spent a lot of time in it. COVID ended, right? We still get it every year, but it's somewhat over. And so And so now we've all moved back into the regular world, but there companies have kind of discovered like, oh, but we still want to keep people attached to this thing. We still want to keep people in on it. How do we do that? Frank, I think you know from our from this podcast, our shorts do way better than our long format. No one's probably going to ever hear this particular discussion right here unless it's put into a short.
Unless I put it into a short. And even then,
So
it's probably too long.
yeah, and
And
so
even then, they wouldn't train it. They wouldn't
right,
use it
and
to
so why
train.
do you think that is? Why is that? Why is it like now we're just seeing all these shorts and the TikTok format and or the Vine format, if you will, if you want to get retro about it? Why is that working so well?
There's two different reasons, in my opinion, of why it's working so well. And the primary reason is that everybody likes to get to the point, and everybody likes jokes. And it's super really interesting because why is short form reels and short formats working better than they ever have before? Because let's look at it. We had Vine. Remember Vine? Vine
Mhm.
was a real thing, but it had a really short limit. It was like 7 seconds. You had to cram a whole different discussion and maybe something funny in it. Not much better than GIFs. In fact, GIFs were better. And I'm calling them GIFs. And don't you fight me to call them GIFs because they're GIFs. They're GIFs. It's graphical interchange format. And if anyone disagrees and hates it, and you know what? Unsubscribe. Get out. We don't want you. Yeah, get. They're GIFs. It's not like we're making money off this anyway. Anyway, it failed. Vine failed for a specific reason because it sucked. I love it when Elon Musk is on Twitter and he's like, "I'm going to bring back Vine." I'm like, "Do it. Invest all your money into it. Go for it, homie. You can do it. You're the thing. You're the thing that was needed. Because you weren't there at the helm. That's why it failed." And then you have the Reels. You have Facebook Reels. You have TikTok. You have YouTube as well. I think it's interesting that these have become successful primarily because of TikTok. And before it was TikTok, it was Musically. And Musically's main demographic was younger demographic. And kids, I'm not a crotchety old person being like kids don't have a attention span or whatnot, right? But kids in their developmental cycle and with their brains developing, dopamine feels good and dopamine's great. And if you can get dopamine hits off watching shorter content, awesome. And as it's matured as a specific format, we all like it. So I think it's pretty straightforward why we all like this short form content, right? Because we can get a lot of information in short bursts, micro bursts. I also think it's really hilarious. I have all these apps and all these different services online who are like, don't watch TikTok. Instead, do our service for micro book reading, micro burst reading, where they're like, instead of reading this 100-page book, we tell you what it means in like 20 seconds or
Oh,
two
Cliff
minutes.
Notes.
So yeah, basically it's the Cliff Notes. I'm like, it's the same thing. It's just book. It's the same thing. And you're using this haughty attitude of being like, well, we can teach you more things. I'm like, there are a lot of TikTok reels. There's a lot of TikToks and reels out there that can teach you things as well.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I think bandwidth has to do with it. Understanding, and this is where we can get with the cyber angle. There's a lot more bandwidth available to have this changing connections all the time. It's so much more media heavy. If you think about a specific, and I'm sure there's going to be an engineer who can chime in, have fun. We do read the comments, but one of the things to consider here is if you're streaming a video from YouTube or if you're streaming a video from Netflix, there's that UDP connection and all that data can be buffered and then you can watch it and then there it is. With each reel, it's a new reel, new things that have to be
Yeah.
buffered and going back and forth. Data usage is going to be higher. Now we have more space for it. Now people have greater connectivity. It makes more sense in that way. So that's what I'm thinking there. I also think it's sorry, just to get back on the train of hate for ownership here.
Oh, yeah.
Even
Sorry.
though the ownership is now diversified and so forth, you still have the CEO, right? You still have the CEO of TikTok who is on the board. And that's Sho Chu. If this is really a US majority board, why on the 7-seat board, which I admit 1 out of 7 is not a majority, is the CEO still on it? If the goal is to have a clean break from old leadership, right, and to make people feel safe about this, keeping the CEO who reported to ByteDance is arguably a big signal that not much is changing. And I'm sure it was a requirement to make all this happen in this joint venture. I'm sure they said, well, not without, Shu on it, you're not. Just like they're not telling us what the algorithm is, right? And it's pretty rich that here's a country in China, with China specifically, where if we're going to do business there, we have to show them how everything works. It's a requirement, right? Patent be damned. And then that's how all these Xiaomi cars got spun up so quick because Tesla had to show everything in order to manufacture there. Now you have all these Xiaomi cars, which are pretty epic, by the way. Just to get on your point earlier, I would buy one. Um, but we have to, in order to build things there, show them everything. And yet they can operate here in complete anonymity on the most important element that has the biggest impact on the individuals who use this service. I think it's trash. And I think it's disingenuous. And I think it's disingenuous both by ByteDance, by China, and I think it's disingenuous by the politicians who are claiming the win here, saying, look what we did to help you. Right? This is not a meet in the middle thing. This is a greater weapon, or if anything, they've made the weapon stronger because it's going to be a pure data set of just Americans' data to train this weapon on. So,
Yeah. And I mean, I think the greatest travesty really is that you and I, or at least legitimate cybersecurity, has been banned from TikTok.
yeah, we didn't even post one TikTok. Didn't even get one TikToked, right?
Yep.
In that instance. And by the
We
way,
didn't get
I know
one
how to set up a
TikTok.
TikTok account.
Yep.
That TikTok has been used in this house. It's not hard. But as soon as we set up legitimate cybersecurity, banned immediately.
Yeah.
Now, they're definitely going to do it again if I try because they're going to listen to this episode. But yeah, right. Like one of our 12 listeners is going to be like, hey, China, get them.
They might be
Right.
from China. We don't know. We got listeners in China.
Hey, also, wow, if you're in China and you're listening, thanks. Also, thanks again. But listen, I'm not going to pretend we're better than China, right? And if we're talking about countries
No.
and so forth,
No.
I'm certainly not going to pretend that the Chinese people are the problem because I don't think they are. I think people are not their governments. They just have to live with them.
Hopefully people think that about us too, Frank.
Yeah, especially now. Especially now.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
Listen, we're not all on the same boat, guys. Well, I guess
We're
we're
all in the
all in the
same
same
boat. We
boat.
just don't all
We
have the
just don't
same
all
captain.
yeah. We're just not all very comfortable with the captain at
That's
this
right.
point.
That's
So,
right. Oh man. But
yeah.
yeah, no, I think you're spot on, Frank. It is worrisome and it is weird because, and this is where cybersecurity kind of, collides with this, is that, when we're asked by organizations to make sure that, the content is safe that people are looking at, to make sure that when the TikTok thing first happened, I think I remember, were we were either working with the DoD or we had DoD clients. I'm trying to remember, but basically they're like, "Oh yeah, no, that's banned. Like we gotta put a rule in for that. Like no going to that domain. No devices can call to that domain or any of their adjacent domains." Like that was being blocked like left and right. Pretty big memos coming out. I think that still stands, by the way. I think members of the armed forces and stuff are still like, yeah, don't get on TikTok, you know.
Wouldn't know.
Yeah,
Happily
yeah,
out of
fair
that
enough.
life.
Fair enough. I guess if we do have a listener who's listening, and you are currently employed with the armed forces of the United States of America, please let us know if you're allowed to have a TikTok or not.
Oh yeah, no, let's do question time because I do want to ask if you're using why is anyone using TikTok? I mean, when you literally have a congressional ban on this whole service and you see that this joint venture really didn't change anything, why are you using TikTok? There's other alternatives out there. It's insane. It's
Yeah,
what am I missing here? And that's
I
what I'm
don't know.
that's what am I missing here? You have something that is intentionally being obfuscated by a foreign government to influence Americans still, and you're still happily using it. I have to be missing something because I have used it in the past. I get, honestly, Reels is better. Instagram, I enjoy the content on there more, right? YouTube, YouTube Shorts need some work. Let's be honest, right? Okay,
It's a bit. Yeah,
that's a struggle.
we
But
should make a short about this because we need to let YouTube know.
nah, yeah, I've seen what happens when we do that. YouTube's like, oh, no one watched. God, it's probably you. It's probably you. Sorry, guys. We love all content, and just work on your delivery. That's clearly it. I cannot predict anything that will make any short or reel successful for this whole show. And if
Yeah.
anyone wants to give us any tips, that'd be great. Maybe I'll read them. That probably is half the
We're gonna
problem.
get so many like just different responses. Like you guys talk too much, you don't talk enough. Dustin talks too much. Frank doesn't talk enough.
Or
Dustin
we're gonna get
doesn't talk enough.
nothing. Or we're
It's
gonna get zero
oh
responses.
yeah, we're gonna get zero responses. Then it's gonna be like, yeah, but who cares?
And then I'll
But
just maintain my current sense of depression and midlife crisis. So it's fine. Ain't no skin off my back.
to your point though, like so we all stopped using MySpace because I from what I
Because of the
remember.
loud music people would put on their
Yeah, because
profiles?
you could
Yeah.
do embedded content, and it just got so annoying. It was basically people just make it as like GeoCities, but like on crack. And so I
I
didn't
miss
mean anything by that, by
GeoCities.
the way, for
RIP,
anybody.
King. GeoCities was the GOAT. Back in the day,
Yeah.
I remember when
Um,
Facebook first came online, I was like, "Oh, it's just like GeoCities, but worse." It's like, "Oh,
yeah.
you can make your own webpage just about you, but only about you, I guess." O okay.
And so Facebook came around, and that was great because it was only if you had a .edu account, you could only sign up for Facebook. Then they opened it up to everybody, and it got not so great.
Whoa.
Then all the data mining stuff started coming to light. And now, to be fair, I think the only reason why I even go on Facebook anymore is to catch up with any family members who are in a particular generation. And it's not my generation;
Think of
it's the
that.
generation
Think of
above.
that. Facebook started as a .edu account holder
Yeah,
service. So it literally started as a service towards younger generations, and now the only people there are the boomers.
that's
Oh
right.
my gosh.
And so now
And
we
on
have,
the
and then like
turntables.
Facebook saved itself because it bought Instagram. So now Facebook has Instagram. Younger people do use that. I actually, I'm kind of iffy about whether I use it at all. I'll jump on there every once in a while. So then Instagram comes along, right? Now there's TikTok, which is kind of like Instagram, but instead it's like more video y, but Instagram's also video y now. Like it's kind of all the same. And so to your point, like why, like, so we're dropping like here's how a social media site, it's almost like clothing. It's almost like fashion. It's like, because I don't understand it. I don't understand what's fashionable and what's
I
not.
find you quite fashionable, sir.
Thank you.
You're
In my polo
dressed
shirt and
daily.
my Ferris hat. Um, yes. But that's it. Like I don't understand what makes something fall in and out of fashion. But Facebook fell out of fashion. Probably because everybody got on there. Don't get me wrong, there were scandals. The Cambridge
There's
Analytica
tons
thing
of
didn't
reasons
help.
why Facebook would fall out of fashion.
Sure,
Yeah.
but Instagram hasn't. It's owned by the same company, Meta. So obviously you don't care about that. And this goes back to your point about people kind of complaining about like, well, I'm not going to buy this product or do this anymore, or do that. And it's like, eh. So I'm a big Imgurian fan, or Imager Ian fan, or Imager fan, depending on how you want to pronounce it. I love
I
Imgur.
actually don't know how to pronounce it, and I've used it for like a decade now, and
Yeah,
I've just
I say Imgur. I think it's a purist thing. I don't know. Anyway, so on Imgur, it's very politically. The front page is very politically leaning, left leaning, if you will. And so there's always things on there. It's like, oh, I'm not. AWS is a terrible company. I'm not doing anything on AWS. Google's a terrible company. Apple's a terrible company. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, you're posting this from a phone that's probably either Google based or Apple based. You're posting it onto a server that's definitely AWS based. You're supporting these companies by doing this anyways. There's almost no way around it in the digital world. The only way is to get out of the digital world. And can you even do that anymore in society? But anyway, so yeah, back to your points, Frank. Who knows what makes these things like fall in and out of fashion? I don't know because I don't understand it. But eventually, TikTok is going to fall out of fashion. Vine was pretty big for a while and then it died. TikTok, it's probably going to have something's going to happen and it's going to die.
one could maybe argue that the reason Facebook's not doing well and Instagram is the core algorithm that no one gets to see. Perhaps there's two different algorithms.
There you
Just
go.
like there's this core algorithm that no one gets to see specific to TikTok. And to put a bow on all this, one of the things you and I have learned throughout our career is that, especially when it comes to big changes, is follow the money, right? Follow the money,
Yes.
follow the money, follow the money.
Yep.
And I got a little jaded with that in the past. I'm like, it's not just about the money. Guess what? It is. It really, really is. If anyone tells you that follow the money is not the whole picture, most of it usually is.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you take a look at the deal here, right, and you take a look at the actual number, the U.S. operations were valued at around 14 billion, right? That's a big deal. But overall, the value of TikTok is 100 billion. So you've got this $14 billion deal for a $100 billion effort. Why is it being sold for so cheap? Why is this like a pennies on the dollar exchange for ByteDance? What's in it for them? Okay. Because there's a reason they let it go for so cheap. They could have just left the US. Think about this. They could have just left the US and had the entire world, the rest of the world, right? And that's what they've done with their electric cars. They've said, okay, although they're doing a really good charm campaign on YouTube with showing off their vehicles that are, I'm just going to be straightforward, seem a lot better than ours and cheaper. So I want to figure that one out. But They could have just left and had the whole world, and they didn't. And not only did they not, but they took a massive hit to stay here. Why? That's what I think a lot of people should be asking right now. Why did they take such a financial hit just to try and stay here in the United States? Because there's a value there that we're not seeing. I don't know, Dustin. What do you think? What do you think the value is there?
Yeah, I mean, rule of thumb for any social media website is if you're not paying for it, then you're the product, right? Your data is the product. Your data is the payment for that. You're signing away. And I haven't read the TikTok TOC. I'm sure it's 150 pages long. Was written by lawyers who are 10 times smarter than I am when it comes to any kind of privacy law or anything like that. So I think your supposition is sound. I think you're probably going down the right path where it's like, why would a company do this? What are they gaining from it? They're going to gain money somehow, or power somehow, or something somehow. They're not just doing it out of the kindness of their hearts, because that's not how capitalism works in general, right? You got to get paid for what you do. That's how the world continues to turn. So
Sure, I thought it
speaking of
was
which,
gravity.
yeah. Oh man, but yeah, I'm with you on it. I think that's it. I don't know if there's necessarily malicious intent behind it, other than to make more money, which would mean it could still be malicious intent because it still could be trying to get somebody to do something that they would not have otherwise done. Buy a product, invest in a stock, whatever. Or you take every single cent of your money peeled away from you by an algorithm that can do it automatically. So that's I'm with you.
Yep. Which reminds me, I don't know if you've seen it yet, because you're a Fallout fan, if I recall. Have you seen the
Mhm.
show Fallout?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Season two's come out, and
yeah.
the first episode is called "Every Dollar Spent is a Vote Cast."
Yep.
So if that doesn't sum it up, uh,
We just yep. We just caught up on it at my house, so we're up to date on the latest
highly
one.
recommended. Not a
Oh
sponsorship,
yeah,
but if anyone's looking for something good to watch, check out Fallout.
yeah. It's on Amazon.
It is right.
You have to support Amazon. It's on
Yeah,
Amazon
support
Prime.
Amazon.
Yep.
Welcome to the dystopia. We all thought
Yeah.
it'd be scarier. Really, we're just all lost.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for tuning in and thanks for hanging out. If, as always, if you want to know more, go ahead and ask some questions in the comments. We try to read as many of those as possible. Good news coming up next month. We've got another episode coming up, but then next month we have multiple different guests that are coming on the show who have a lot of different and exciting things to talk about. Everything
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
MFA to multi-factor authentication for those of you, and we can ask. I'm excited to talk about MFA attacks because MFA was sold to us as a bill of goods that should solve all of the hacking
Oh yeah.
problems.
As all
And yet
cyber
here
things
we
are.
are. And we also have some MDR guests too. That's managed detection and response. And that's when people don't either have enough people to do cybersecurity for them, so they pay, or don't want to hire people, so they pay. And they still have cyber incidents. So we get to talk about that too. Until then, Dustin,
Keep
say
on
it.
cybering.
Keep on cybering. All right. Have a good week, everyone.